While we give it another second for more folks to join us, how are you two doing today? Where are you joining from?
Doing really well. Joining from Los Angeles. It's actually been a very just easygoing day, taking care of some work, but very few stresses, which is a rarity. So, actually doing well.
Love to hear it. How about you, Jenny?
Yeah, it's also a pretty good day. I'm also calling in from Southern California, a little bit south of LA, general area. And really, it's cool to see everyone joining and all the hearts popping up.
Yeah. Oh wow. So glad to hear we're all in California. I'm in Oakland in the Bay. So we are a West Coast group today, which in a Jewish context is not always the case. There's lots of East Coast hegemony in these kinds of conversations. So glad we're bringing it over here.
Yeah, I guess I can partly represent the East Coast. I grew up outside of Boston and lived in New York for a while, so it was very much part of that East Coast Jewish hegemony.
Yeah, same here. Okay, getting another technical note that I want to make sure I follow up on before we get started. So give me a second. Here we go.
Jared, you always have the coolest wallpaper. Whenever we do,
Oh,
always like the one with the best wallpaper in the background.
I love wallpaper, and for years and years, like over a decade and a half, I've oh, I should get wallpaper. And finally, when I moved into my current place, I was like, if I'm here for like 2 months, so be it. I'm putting up some wallpaper.
Yeah,
So
you really went all out. Really, really.
yeah.
Um, so I think we should get started. So thanks to everyone who's joining us. As you're coming in, feel free to say hi with a little heart emoji. But we are really excited to be here today. My name is Matt. I use he, him pronouns, and I am on staff at Bend the Arc. I am the program manager for a young adult fellowship we run called the Jeremiah Fellowship. But I'm here today to help support this conversation with Lunar, the Jewish Asian Film Project. I actually have the real privilege of having worked at Hillel when one of your co-directors of this project, Jen, was a student at UC Berkeley. So really love Jen, love the whole team and everything you've done, and I'm excited to talk a bit more. But I'm going to pass it over to the two of you to introduce yourselves.
Thank you. Yeah, we are definitely excited as well. Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm calling in from SoCal, Southern California. And on the Lunar team, I am the creative director and also one of the co-creators along with Jen.
Hi everyone, I'm Jared, also calling in from Southern California. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a creative producer at Lunar, and very happy to be on this call with everyone.
Great. Well, thank you both for introducing yourselves and for making the time today. So like I mentioned before, we're going to spend the next 30 minutes or so talking about Lunar, the Jewish Asian Film Project, which is just this really incredible series that highlights all of the unique experiences and stories of Asian Jews. And the first season is fully out on YouTube, and you can also watch it on Instagram. And they just launched their second season in the past couple of weeks. The first 2 episodes are out, but I'm going to pass it over to the experts to tell us a little bit more about Lunar, and I'd love to know more about the origins of the Lunar series, and why you decided to do it, and how each of you got involved.
Yeah, so Lunar started the very first, I guess, beginning seeds of Lunar began last year in May 2020. So we've been growing throughout the pandemic. Um, Jen, our other co-creator and our executive producer, messaged me on Facebook one day, and I didn't know her. I just got this message from a person named Jen, and she had seen me in another video that I did talking about my mixed race identity as someone who's Chinese and Ashkenazi Jewish. And she messaged me. She was like, "Hey, you don't know me, but I am also mixed race, and I'm also Chinese and also Ashkenazi Jewish. We should like hop on Zoom and talk about this." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I met my mixed twin. I found someone who shares this with me." Oh, so we hopped on Zoom and we invited a few other Chinese American Jews to join us on the call, and we had a little Zoom and just talked about what it meant to be Chinese and Jewish. And then after that, we were like, "Oh, that was really fun. We learned so much about ourselves. What if we like continue to do this, but then like expanded it to just Asian American Jews in general?" And with some grant funding and building our team and bringing on new cast members, Lunar was born, and we expanded into a video series, which, as you said, now we're in our second season. And Lunar has definitely like shifted and evolved over the past year as we've grown, and it's grown beyond what we ever could have imagined when we first started. But now, to answer your question about our purpose statement is: Lunar cultivates connection, belonging, and visibility for Asian American Jews through authentic multimedia storytelling and intersectional community programming. So we are a video series, and we're also a community, and we do different community events and offerings. So yeah, Lunar it started from a very small little one Zoom call or even one Facebook message, and it has since grown to a big thriving community of Asian American Jews and our allies, and yeah, it's been really lovely. And then I guess that's the story of how I got involved. Jared, would you like to hop in and explain how you got involved?
Thank you so much for that answer. We lost Jared, having some Zoom or Instagram live technical difficulties, but we're gonna bring him back in right now. But thanks so much for sharing all that really neat origin story that I'm excited to hear more about. But Jared, I'm wondering if you, now that you're back, wanted to share a bit about how you got involved with Lunar.
Sure. Yeah. I feel I was listening, but I feel like I dropped back in just in time. But yeah, it was probably August or September of 2020 when I saw I think Jenny had posted something on Facebook. We were Facebook friends from a prior project, and I saw they were just looking for cast members for the filming of Lunar. And I was like, oh, this might be something I can join. And as I was already debating like and figuring out what answers I want to submit, I get an email from Jenny saying like, hey, we're looking for some help with this project on the creative side with the editing. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. Instead of like going through the process of applying that way, I'll go and actually like help and kind of be a creative asset to the team. So yeah, it was probably around September 2020, maybe October 2020 that I officially joined, and had just been loving it and helping out, ever since.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like you really started with, this sort of organic community that was focused on connection and just, getting to know each other. And then you ended up developing this really incredible series and with a very specific, format and purpose. And I'd love to know a little bit more about, how did you move from just being a couple of folks who are talking about shared experiences, then saying, let's make a video series, let's document these experiences, and particularly how you decided to go do the formatting of it the way you did with these conversations happening.
Yeah, so from that original Zoom call with Chinese American Jews, one of the Chinese American Jews on the call was someone named Ricky, who got us in touch with a grant opportunity through Jews of Color Initiative. So in applying to that grant, we were really thinking like, how can we expand this? What could we turn this into? And like I said, we knew that we wanted to expand it beyond just Chinese American Jews to Asian American Jews in general. um, in realizing even just the diversity and like depth of our stories, even just within the Chinese American Jewish niche, we were like, there's a lot here. Like, we really wanted to discover and amplify the stories within this niche that we really didn't feel like we had a place yet in the Jewish community. We saw a gap in representation, and we were like, let's create our own representation. So in deciding to make a video series, we knew that we wanted the format to be very authentic and unscripted, and just give our participants a platform to just share their honest stories and try to keep it as authentic and unedited as we can. So we brought together the participants. We sent out a call for the participants, and way more people applied than not only than we were expecting, but also than we got more applicants than I even knew were Asian Jews out there. That was not really a sentence, but just the number of people that applied, we were like, oh my gosh, how many of us are out there? How many Asian American Jews are out there in the world, all believing that we're like the only one? Oh my gosh. So throughout the process, we filmed the episodes, we connected Asian American Jews on Zoom calls, and we also hopped on Zoom calls just to get to know each other, and also not just for filming. And through this process, we connected with so many Asian American Jews, and it's been just really fulfilling personally for me and for the team. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll echo that same sentiment of just it being a personally in the most selfish way possible, a very fulfilling. But then it's also beyond just thinking about myself. It's been so wonderful just seeing this kind of community form. In a weird way, it's like the videos were exploring like how people have not had a community throughout their lives, and by talking about that, this very organic community started to form. And even like, going through the footage for the different episodes, and we had all, these long kind of 2 to 3 hour filming sessions. So there's a lot of footage. 2 hours in, there'll be someone will just say like, they'll kind of like break out of what we're talking about and be like, I can't believe this is just so wonderful. Like I've never been on a call with like five, or 4 or 5 other Asian Jews before. And it happens throughout all these sort of large chunks of filming we did. And it's very, it feels very wholesome in a way, because you're like, oh, like I'm part of this thing. Everyone's connecting. Like I feel more connected. Everyone's reflecting that. So it's been not just an interesting kind of look at our experiences, but a very kind of connecting and enjoyable process.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds just so exciting to not just create a sort of finished product that fills the mission you're setting out of representing and telling stories of Asian American Jews, but also like in the process to gain that for yourself, to gain that community. I mean, that's just so wonderful to get there while doing the thing. So really just like feel that excitement and joy that both of you got by being a part of this. I would love to know a little bit more about, since it's been about 6 months or 6 to 8 months since you launched the first season. I'd love to know a little bit more about what the response has been to the series.
The response has been far beyond what I could have imagined when we first set out. When we first started making videos, before we released them, while we were still working on them, I was like, wow, I was already satisfied with just the fact that we had met so many Asian American Jews through the process of creating it, and I was already basking in that community and my own joy and connection in coming into my own identities through this project. But I couldn't have even imagined that we would, be the number of people that we would connect with once we actually were releasing the episodes. We started Instagram, and within a few months we were up to like 4,000 something followers, which was a lot of people in such a short amount of time. And we've been connected with so many amazing organizations and other groups of people in the Jewish world and in the Asian American world. And it's been just amazing. And I would say the most like personally impactful piece of how it's been received to me is just hearing from other Asian American Jews how groundbreaking it feels for them to finally find this community and to be able to connect to all layers of their identities without barriers of feeling not enough or not having cultural access or feeling like they don't really belong because of another piece of their identity. Just anytime that we meet another Asian American Jew, and we get DMs all the time and emails from people who are just like, this exists, oh my gosh, hello, hi, I'm also an Asian American Jew, hi. And just that enthusiasm and excitement is just something that feels super unique, and I don't always get to experience that in other creative things I do. Identity is just such this viscerally personal thing that I think Lunar being the first time that so many of our community members have found a community like this where they can explore their identity in this way. It's a very visceral, like, oh my gosh, hello. Like, it's profoundly exciting.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense how viscerally people do connect to it when you cover things as sort of ranging as just like the food you eat in sort of both sets of cultures that you might belong to, all the way up to the anti-Asian and anti-Semitic violence that was happening and has continued to happen over the past couple of years. Those are just things that pull at people's identities and their experiences in such a meaningful way, and you all really evoked that emotion by telling these stories that were so personal. So yeah, it makes sense that it resonated in that way. Jared, did you want to share anything about the response that you've noticed?
Yeah, I think one thing just sort of, growing up as an Asian Jew, you kind of like, all right, I see other Asian people, I see other Jews, and I do connect to both groups, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I'm sort of by myself. I have two brothers; they're both also Asian American Jews, and so it's like, all right, my brothers are similar to me, but kind of just going through life, like, all right, I'm not really gonna find that community. I'm in my 30s now, and when with this project and just seeing the response and seeing other people kind of reflect this sort of idea, it's like they just sort of accepted, like, oh, I'm just on my own, and not necessarily always feeling like terrible about that. But then you have this realization of like, oh wait, like I don't have to like just kind of fall back on this sort of kind of being by yourself and not having that sort of tight knit community of those who understand you on a deeper level. And then Lunar comes along, and just even just like the preliminary meetings with just our our small team, I was like, oh wait, like here's a handful of more people that I can really deeply relate to. And then also sitting in on all the the conversations throughout the filming, like even expanded, like, oh wait, there's more of us. And then also the community growing, and then just the response after releasing the videos has been wonderful. And it's sort of, and it makes me wonder, it's like how many people have had sort of a similar experience to me in relationship to this project of like, oh, I was alone, but sort of okay with that. But then realizing like, oh, maybe I kind of resigned to this sort of, solitude when it was ultimately unnecessary because there are other Asian American Jews out there to, connect with.
Yeah, and it's just it's so integral to the work of trying to ultimately like make change in the world, is like to find the people who share your identity, who share your experience, because then you can really come together and then do that work together, and you can do so much more. That's not to say that this film series isn't wonderful on its own, but I can only imagine what else is next now with this sort of like fledgling community of folks who are engaged in these conversations and in this work. I would love to know if there's, have you had anyone reach out to you with a particular like revelation or story that Lunar brought out for them?
Yeah, I mean, there are many examples that I could bring up. The one that I will bring up, because you can see it on our Instagram page, which I won't say the person's name, but we got permission to share it anonymously. This person sent us a letter, emailed us a letter that they wrote to us. They were a high schooler, and they were adopted and Jewish and Asian, and felt very alone. I think they grew up in rural Georgia. And so they sent us this letter that was like, I am an adopted Asian Jew growing up in rural Georgia, and I'm in high school, and this project has been super transformative for me coming into my identity, and I felt so alone and so different, but now hearing all these other stories, I don't feel alone anymore. And it almost made me cry. Like, anytime that anyone reaches out and shares their story in such a personal and vulnerable way like that, it warms my heart to know that Lunar can be a part of their story, and that they can be a part of our story too.
Yeah, that letter, I think we all read it, and like we just responded to one another with like cry face emojis, because it was just so like, you're like, oh damn, like we did something and this person saw it and it moved them, and it feels just so wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially that coming from a young person, from a high schooler. We know that the diversity of the Jewish community is only growing with time, and it's just so incumbent upon us to make sure that as this community grows, that we can reflect that growth, that we can offer that to young people who are looking for things to hold on to and looking for role models. And it's really neat that two of you and the rest of the team could be role models for them. So I want to talk a little bit about season 2, which I watched the first 2 episodes earlier this week, and just really incredible. Loved the conversation about shapes. There were a lot of really interesting answers there. But I'd love to know a little bit more about, what can we expect from season 2? What have you done so far, and what else is on the agenda?
Yeah, thank you so much for all the hearts in the chat, by the way. I see you hyping me up. Yeah, so season 2, we launched this past season. The first 2 episodes are out, as you said, about what shape is your identity, about media representation, and then we release episodes every 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from this week, we release episode 3, and there will be 5 episodes in total, and the other episodes cover themes like language, religion, interfaith identity, and the positives, everything we love about being Asian American Jews, because there are a lot of positives. So in this season, we were really building off of the themes we covered in season 1, but getting a little deeper. I think season 1 was very much an introduction of, like, who are we? Well, first of all, it was like, hi, Asian American Jews exist. Hello, here we are. Here are 23 of us. We share a lot of common ground, but we also are very, very diverse. Hello, we're here. So I think season 1 was just that initial, like, see us, recognize that we exist, and also like a call to other Asian American Jews out there to join us and to find themselves. But now that we've already laid that out in season 1, now in season 2, we're like, all right, let's get deeper. Let's talk about some of the more complicated pieces of our identity, like complicated relationships with religion, how we feel about being represented in the media, whether we feel like we're represented or not, whether that's authentic. And we really started out this more nuanced, I guess, season with the What Shape is Your Identity episode 1, in which participants visualize their identities through the analogy of a shape or a symbol. And then we had our art director, Davi, draw each of the symbols that participants mentioned. So artistically, that's my favorite piece of the episode, is like Davi's drawings, I think, make the episode. It's so fun to see. But it was really cool to hear the participants speak about the shapes and just the complications of their identities and the journeys that they've gone on, because as we know, identity is not static. It can fluctuate over time, which is definitely something that Lunar has been exploring.
Yeah, and what's been interesting with the process of putting season two together is, so like Jenny said, that season one was sort of the introduction, the 101 of being Asian American and Jewish. And season two, we're like, all right, let's dig it a little bit deeper. But even as we have these conversations about the different episodes in season two, we're like, oh, there's also this thing or this interesting story or this like piece of information that even goes, that's like, oh, like that doesn't quite fit in this episode, but it needs to go somewhere. So I think like, even after season two is complete, we're like, oh, we got a whole bunch of other stuff we need to explore. And I think it kind of even just goes to sort of what we were talking about a little while ago. It's like, oh, you kind of go through life thinking like, oh, maybe I'm just, there aren't a lot of Asian American Jews out there, and kind of settling with that. But then as soon as you kind of open it up, more people come in. And so as soon as we kind of crack open these topics a bit and start doing a deep dive, and, we end up finding like, oh, there's just so much there, so many stories. And, and we use this phrase, Asian American Jews, but all of us are so different. Obviously, America, we were just talking earlier, the East Coast is different than the West Coast, but also Asia is a massive continent with many countries. And so, just exploring it, it's like, and I'm just sort of repeating myself, but there's just a whole lot to look at and so many unique experiences. And what I find kind of, fascinating is like we have these unique experiences, different ways we grew up, but at the same time, everyone kind of is able to connect and maybe even connect over the fact that their experiences are, so unique.
Yeah, I thought that you guys did that just so well of making really clear that when we're talking about the Asian Jewish experience, we're not talking about a singular experience, because the folks who are in these rooms represent many different countries, many different cultures, some of them totally dissimilar. Like I was really interested in how many folks also talked about having Muslim families and Muslim backgrounds, and how that diversity of culture is in there as well. So yeah, I think you all did a really good job of exploring that. I have a couple more questions for you, but just wanted, while we have folks in the room, to just give you guys another chance to share how folks could watch the series.
Yeah, so if you want to check out the series, which again, you can watch all of season one, and then the first 2 episodes of season 2 are out, and we release more episodes every 2 weeks, so keep up with that, stay tuned. The 2 main ways to watch the episodes are, one, our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/AsianJews. All of our episodes are up on our YouTube channel. And then also we post the episodes on our Instagram, which Jared is currently live streaming in from at asian.jews. All of the episodes are also on our IGTV. I personally prefer to watch them on YouTube because you can make it full screen and the description has all the info in there. And but if you prefer to watch videos on a phone small, then we also have it on Instagram. So whatever you prefer, youtube.com/AsianJews or Instagram at asian.jews.
Great. Thanks for laying that out for us. And just to wrap up, I would love to hear from each of you, maybe like one thing that you learned while making the series, and one thing that you hope other folks take away from the series.
My answer to those is actually kind of the same thing. What I have taken away from it is what I also hope others can take away from it, is that I learned that being an Asian American Jew can be such a joyful, positive, connected thing. Growing up not super connected to Jewish community, not really feeling like I fit in with the Asian American community, and kind of, navigating between these 2 spheres, I felt very negative about my identities. I felt like there was something inherently negative about them, which I think, I get, because our communities come from such pain and trauma and grief, and it's in our blood. So on one hand, I, Lunar has been intentional about giving a space for participants to talk about all of their experience, positive and negative, and really just trying to give nuanced perspectives on everything. And the negatives are there, and we make room to talk about them and to process them. But at the same time, discovering that there's so much joy to be had in being an Asian American Jew. There's just so much to explore. And when you have those connections and you have this community, and when you're in the community and it's safe and it's connected and engaged, that's not negative. It's super positive, and for me has been super joyful. So I would love for others to take away that, being an Asian American Jew, it can be complicated, it can be nuanced, there are positives and negatives, but ultimately I'm having a lot of fun with it.
I love that as a takeaway. It's a whole mixed bag, but at the end of the day, the community and the connection and the possibility are fun and good, and changing the way people are thinking about these things. So thanks so much, Jenny. Jared?
Yeah, yeah, just like kind of going off the whole the happiness that comes out of working on this. There is we do dive into challenging topics, dealing with like anti-Asian hate and anti-Semitism, but the response and just like kind of the messages that the cast gives, there's still a lot of like joy and hopefulness in it. But as far as like stuff I've learned, I feel like I learn stuff all the time. But in just recently with the 2 episodes that are out, with the shapes, and hearing the cast talk about what shape they are, but sometimes they view someone's shape, it's more of a chart of their journey with their identity. And then also in the media representation episode, I worked in the film industry, and so media representation is so I was kind of like, oh, that's the most important, or that media representation has to be there, which I agree that it does. But one of our cast members says like, it might it might not be the most important thing, or that someone lists off like a whole bunch of their identities, and they're like, I'm not really expecting to see this very specific version of myself on screen. And while I do hope that and feel that it is great for every kid to see a version of themselves in the media, and I think it's important for just for the world as a whole, it has kind of led me down a path of like, oh, let me like rethink my own identity and my own journey, and I think this is a slightly broad or maybe abstract lesson that I've learned from watching our videos, is that I've spending 30 somewhat years just thinking of things in a certain way, and then realize like, oh, there are many ways to view it, many ways to interpret it, and many paths that that are out there for people that they have taken to take, and so I've really walked away with asking myself more questions, and rethinking just who I am as a person, and kind of like almost it's like as if I spent a lot of life in the put on this sort of suit, and like, this is just the suit I'm gonna wear for the rest of my life, so be it. And hearing these different things like, oh, wait a second, like I don't have to just have this one suit or this one presentation. I can still sort of discover new things about myself. And I guess sort of in the same vein as Jenny, of what I've learned is what I also want to share, or that I hope people take away from the project, is that is to ultimately ask themselves questions. If someone walks away from an episode and if they felt some sort of discomfort or confusion, or just like, oh, I've never heard that before, to just really like sit with that and use the project as somewhat of a mirror to their own life, and And that's not just for Asian American Jews. The sort of the mixed experience, while unique in every form, there are ways that we can connect and can relate to sort of the uniqueness of our journeys. So yeah, really just to walk away and ask yourself questions as tough or introspective as they might be.
Yeah, I think that takeaway definitely succeeded, Jared. I'm a Mexican American Jew, and I related so much to just what you guys were saying about being mixed, and it's certainly something that everybody can learn from, and everybody can get a lot out of by listening to you and the whole team's experience. So we're gonna start to wrap up now. Could you guys plug for me one more time how folks can watch Lunar?
Of course, yes. So, once again, if you'd like to watch season one, which is already completely out, or the first two episodes of season two, and continue watching as we continue to release more episodes of season two, you can check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/Asian Jews, or on our Instagram, instagram.com/Asian.Jews, at Asian.Jews.
Amazing. Jenny, Jared, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. Everybody watching, everybody who is soon to watch this Instagram Live once we post it, definitely check out Lunar. It's just such a powerful and well-made creation. Lots of gratitude to the whole team over at Lunar. Y'all are doing incredible, important work. And thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Thanks for having me. Super fun. Thanks everyone again for watching.
Bye.
And
Thank you.